Hello and welcome to the Slow Ready Podcast, a casual drive into the music and culture of Goose. I'm Mike.
And I'm Alex.
And we are back with another exciting episode where we are going to review Goose's fourth and latest album, Everything Must Go. But first, as usual, the best way to keep up with us is on our social media at Slow Ready Pod. Pretty much wherever you are, we are as well. We've got a lot of great topics and episodes coming your way, so please be sure to follow us wherever you are. We can meet you there as well. And definitely want to give a special shout out to YouTube as well. We're starting to do a little bit more stuff over there, so would love to have you join us on that platform as well. And we can't wait to get into our main topic, but first we'd like to get into the news and notes from this week with Goose in our first segment, Hot Tea. And I've got to say, Alex, this is the biggest hot tea we've ever had. The news and notes is simply overwhelming, so we're going to do our best, but we're going to be here for a minute. Obviously, probably one of the biggest weeks in Goose's history that I can ever remember.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to even determine where the best starting point is, but I know one of the biggest deals was Goose did their first set at Jazz Fest. It was a really great set. They were on the Gentilly stage, I believe, and some people were kind enough to send us some audio and video from that. Any overall thoughts on the Jazz Fest set and Goose's first time there, Alex?
Well, I just kind of want to read off the set because it's really, I think, a great encapsulation of a way to grab a new audience that maybe is not so familiar while also really appealing to all the fans who made the effort to travel out to Jazz Fest. I thought they struck a really great balance here. So open with Madhuvan, amazing. Get a Hot Love next. Silver Rising, start featuring the new album. Hunger Sight, Into Your Direction, live debut of that, outstanding. Into Thatch, again, another new song from the new album. And then we get some rarities thrown in. Christmas Card from a Hooker in Minneapolis. Get the Tom Waits going. Holy shit. Then Give It Time. So Ready. Another rarity in Sinnerman. And then also a great cover. And then Arcadia. So I just thought they really threaded the needle great on this. And while the sound maybe wasn't the best at the venue from the feedback we got and some of the videos we got, like depending on where you're standing, you couldn't really hear your direction or you could hear it great or things like that. But I thought overall it was a nice way to kind of display their chops, even if you didn't get the full light show experience and the night show experience. It was a good selection of songs. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And we've said this before, but Goose really doesn't hold back for festival sets. And this is no different, further evidence of that fact. Just a really good mix of songs. Super jealous of the Tom Waits cover. I mean, that doesn't pop up very often. So some lucky ducks there in NOLA. And yeah, definitely hear you on the sound part. I think Jazz Fest can be a challenge in terms of getting video or sound. Just having been there myself, the amount of people there is absolutely enormous. It's just a sea of humanity. And also at that particular racetrack, not a lot of trees or other obstacles to stop the wind. So that can kind of carry the sound away as well. But I'm sure that if you were there, just looking at the set and from what I've been able to hear, it's a really, really great festival set, as they typically do. But I don't know. I think that maybe we're aligned on this. We haven't really talked about it directly, but that night they did a special set, which was kind of a secret. If it was like the worst kept secret. But they showed up as Foie Gras and Crumpets, which was basically Cotter, Peter, and Rick, along with Mark Brownstein and Aaron from the Disco Biscuits. And do you want to read off that set, Alex? Because I think the community was pretty freaking high on this show.
I mean, this was just incredible. It was one set, I think a notch over 2 hours long. Really thankful that our buddy Garrett, Garn TD, you might know him online as, recorded a bunch of this on Mixler. But it opened with Helicopters, and then went into Miracles, which are both Disco Biscuit songs, and then went into Creatures, into Tomorrow Never Knows, Beatles cover, back into Helicopters, and then took a pause there, and Mark Brownstein geeked out and said he was pumped to be here with Rick and Peter and Cotter, and shouted out that Cotter is Disco Biscuits fam and all that, and then they started up again real quick into Cross-Eyed and Painless, Slow Ready, into Digital Buddha, into Hunger Sight, into You Spin Me Around Like a Record, and then took an encore of Hot Tea after that. Whew, where do we start?
Yeah, so I mean, this was just an unbelievable show, and we fortunately had a lot of friends that were at it, and it was very limited attendance. Obviously, a very special event for everyone that was there. But I mean, when you listen to the audio and the video from this show, I think that there's no doubt for me that this goes a step above the set at Jazz Fest, and just a unique opportunity to see kind of this crossover event between two beloved bands in the jam band scene. I'm a huge fan of the Disco Biscuits. Um, and also the two covers that they chose, I don't, or the three covers rather, I don't think any of them could be more perfectly chosen. So super jealous of all that was in attendance, and I knew I was expecting something really cool to happen, but I think this somehow still surpassed my expectations.
Yeah, it is pretty remarkable that we all were so hyped for this, and then listening to it, it's like this was way better than I could have even imagined it. I expected it to be more covers, honestly, when I first heard the announcement, and to see them playing a bunch of their originals and trading off was really cool. And it all sounded so natural. Like, it was really nice to hear the reimagining in some ways of the bass lines. And Aaron Magner is just like a sound wizard, and everyone knows he's one of the greatest in the industry at what he does. And his touch on some of these Goose songs was just chef's kiss. It sounded so cool. And from the clips of videos that we got, like you said, you could see how loose everyone was and how locked in on stage they were. And it just seemed like everyone, when you got a good look at their face, looked like they were geeking out at everyone else on stage. So it was just really good vibes all around, really intimate setting, and looked like a lot of fun. Honestly, I really don't want to talk through this song by song because I feel like it's more of like an experience that is rewarding to just listen to on your own. And we can link Garrett's audio from this in our show description here.
Yeah, absolutely. I always thought that this is one of the coolest aspects of Jazz Fest is that there's just all the best musicians in the world for the most part are in town, so you have the opportunity to do these unique experiences that you might not see otherwise. And it also, to your point, was very striking how much immediate chemistry everyone had right away. So, but
Hold up 1 second. I forgot to mention one thing is that Mark Brownstein is Team Slow, and he and the podcast bonded a little bit this week on Blue Sky. So just wanted to shout out Mark. I'm so glad he's Team Slow with us.
absolutely, the man is a legend, and we're happy to have him.
Hell yeah.
Super exciting stuff. And then they had another show, and this one, I'm not going to lie, this was really, really huge for me. I'm a huge fan of this, but Goose got to sit in with the Preservation Hall Band for the very famous late night shows that they're known for. And being a humongous fan of New Orleans and knowing that if you go to New Orleans, one of the first things you have to do is go see Pres Hall Band. This was just an absolute milestone moment for me. And fortunately, this one, Goose only did 3 songs with the band, but almost all of it is available online for you to see. So, any thoughts on this?
All-timer moment, like you said. And once again, Garrett coming in clutch, recording this and putting the audio up for all of us to listen to. It's up on Google Drive. We'll link to that as well. They did play 3 Goose songs, and then Rick and Peter joined David Shaw with the band as well to play on his song Got Me Feeling Good. It was just incredible, and it's really fun to hear the back and forth between Rick and Peter and the horns taking over kind of melodic lines on songs like Arcadia. But this is like a low-key qualm because this is all outstanding, but it kind of reminds you how much talent Rick and Peter have when they have to step back a little bit, and you're like, oh, like this is really cool, but I don't want this to be like a permanent fixture in the band, if that makes sense. Like the horns are great, but also I really love what Rick and Peter do sometimes.
No, yeah, 1,000%. And that's kind of the major dilemma for a jam band fan is that with Peter and Rick typically leading most of the improv when they're in, different fish out of water scenarios, they're good enough to do it, obviously. But I don't think any of us, since they're our heroes, wants them to step back too often. But at least as a change of pace, it was also a good reminder for me that while I may not want it with the band full time, they do work incredibly well with horns when they choose to do this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. I think we've just been getting a lot of feedback this week that people want horns in the band full time from hearing the album and then seeing these clips, and that's just kind of my note is just it's awesome. Like cherish these versions, but I think the novelty would wear off if it was a permanent fixture because then you would have way less Rick, way less Peter, way less Trevor. So just some food for thought. And for me, special shout out to that Turn Clouds. I think that was my favorite of the 3 songs they played, but all of them are outstanding and well worth a listen.
Yeah, definitely. I think that might have been my highlight too. Although hearing an Arcadia outro with the horns was also just so freaking cool to listen to.
So cool. Yeah, these will be in the rotation for a long time.
100%, 100%. And then just this train keeps rolling right along because I had the chance to check this out yesterday morning while it was happening, but Goose was on CBS Saturday morning. They did Give It Time and Your Direction and Thatch in studio there, although Thatch was not part of the broadcast in the live version. And then they did a brief, like, I want to say it was like almost a 5 minute interview, maybe just a little bit shy of that. I was kind of, being the fan that I am, hoping for a little bit more. I was hoping maybe we get like a 10-15 minute interview or something like that, and maybe one or two more songs, but still very, very cool to see them, on one of the three major broadcast networks. They're just stepping up all over the place. So did you get a chance to watch that, Alex? Any thoughts?
I didn't get to watch it live, but I caught it after the fact. And yeah, you're very short. Of course, you always want more, but I was kind of surprised at some of the questions that were asked. Honestly, it wasn't like all necessarily softballs. I would say they got into some territory I wasn't expecting, but it wasn't anything groundbreaking by any means. Yeah, much better than some of these other publications we might talk about later, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that. Don't you worry. I got a lot to say. Um, but yeah, highly recommend checking it out. Really cool to see the band on CBS in studio, and they gave some really honest answers that were pretty interesting. Also in line with the Everything Must Go album release week bonanza, there were also 6 listening parties that all took place on April 24th at 6 p.m. in Bend, Oregon, Denver, Colorado, Phoenix, Arizona, Indianapolis, Indiana, Boise, Idaho, and Wilmington, North Carolina, with discounted summer tour ticket sales and album giveaways. Also had an event in San Jose del Cabo on 425 at 6 p.m., which is where, of course, Viva El Ganzo will be. Any thoughts on that, Alex? I thought it was pretty cool that they chose to do something unique like that for the album.
I thought it was super cool. I wish there was even more locations because I was a little bit jealous and had some FOMO, but it looked like a lot of fun from the pictures I saw, and I saw a lot of folks got copies of the vinyl just as a giveaway during the event. I didn't hear anything about the discounted tickets or anything, but that's just awesome to organize something like this for local Goose fans to geek out with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just love how Goose is so innovative as a band, doing things that other people are not always doing. So, and then I think I'm kind of just at this point dying for fall dates, but we have more and more festivals just coming down the pipe. And so this week we got the announcement of Park City Song Summit on August 14th and 16th with Green Sky Bluegrass, Dawes and Friends, Marcus King and Eric Krasno, also LPGOB doing a Dead After Party set, which sounds really interesting. And also Goose will be at the Newport Folk Festival on July 25th, back again. Also, an always great lineup at that festival. Jeff Tweedy, Geese, Iron and Wine, Luke Combs, Flip Turn. Lots of great artists there. Any thoughts that you have on the two festivals announced this week, Alex?
I've heard great things about both festivals. We got tipped off a little bit early about Park City Song Summit, so that seems like it's just I was looking into it a little bit early, and it's just an outstanding looking venue, and Park City's really cool, and it just looks like great vibes if you're in the area. Well worth a visit. I see that the Airbnbs and all that are like through the roof now that the festival got announced, so might be a little late if you want to go now, but hey, if you're local, worth a shot. And then Newport Folk Festival, I hope Animal comes back. You got to bring him back.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, definitely hope Animal comes back.
Best guest spot of all time.
It's not even close. It's not even close. Um, and it's not a Goose announcement, but Rick will be playing the Hudson River Music Festival, joining Graham Lesh and friends on June 14th. He is just the guy that everyone runs to for these things now, which is just absolutely amazing because he deserves it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Cutting into our All Good Now Festival guest spots by Rick, though. It's a shame.
Yeah, and there was definitely some hope that those things would transpire, but props to them for staying busy.
Yeah.
Also got Viva El Gonzo on Nugs, and the Wi-Fi does check out. However, this one you will have to pay a small fee for that. I know that I'm going to pay that without hesitation, and I assume you are as well, my friend.
Oh, it's already paid for, buddy.
The only reasonable answer, and just exactly what I was expecting.
I wish we could go, but we can't, so might as well watch it at home.
Yeah, you and I have been pulling up booking websites and throwing things at the wall and, screaming in frustration as we try to find angles to make this all come together. And it's not in the cards for either one of us, but super lucky that they're going to let us watch from home because I don't know that I'd be okay if they did.
Oh, I was worried, honestly. I was very worried. And this was a very calming, cup filling announcement for me because I was like, oh my gosh, if they don't stream this, how the hell are we going to cover this?
Yeah, I might have just, been homeless and found myself in Mexico because I just couldn't miss it. So glad that this works out for us.
Oh, God.
And then do want to go over just very briefly the Everything Must Go music video did come out this week. I think it's really, really cool using some stop motion animation in it. If you haven't got a chance, I know me and Alex have said this ad nauseum, but Goose really does do a good job with their music videos. And Luna Luna soundboards are finally on Nugs. So, any quick thoughts on those two things, Alex, before we maybe address these articles in the room?
I'm a sucker for stop motion stuff. Like I'm Ben from Parks and Rec, where I could probably spend like 3 weeks trying to learn the hobby and make 4 seconds of video trying to emulate this video because I liked it so much. I think it's great. Probably my favorite of Goose's music videos for my taste. And Luna Luna, really nice to be able to relive that. I really want the video too, so fingers crossed that comes out. But yeah, great time.
100% agree. Yeah, I think it's the best video. And I think that I would probably honestly just say that if you just watch the music videos in order from Goose, I think they just progressively have gotten better. So, huge fan of that. But having said all of that, there were two articles around Goose and Everything Must Go coming out this week, as you typically get all the press coming out all at one time. And this was no different. So we had two articles. One was a New York Times article, and another was a Rolling Stone article. Alex, wherever you'd like to start, I will follow right behind you, sir. I know we both have a lot to say on these two things.
Well, we can start with the New York Times article. How about that? That one came out first. I mean, there's a lot more articles than these two. These were just the two biggest ones by
Sure.
far. Really nice to see Goose getting a lot of coverage this week. But New York Times article was just like a kind of like high level feature of the band. It didn't really break that much ground on things we already knew. You could have gotten most of those facts from the first 10 minutes of our Goose history podcast if you listen to that. It's very surface level, but just a nice high level recap for anyone who isn't familiar with Goose to read the article. And we're a published podcast now because they just shouted us out with no warning whatsoever to shit on my take from the Hot Takes episode that was said half in jest, but whatever. It was cool to see our name in the publication. But yeah, any thoughts on that one, Mike?
Yeah, and to Alex's point, we did pretty much the point that they quoted. We did pretty much walk it back 3 or 4 times almost immediately after, but neither here nor there. Just a very cool moment for us to be mentioned alongside as our favorite band. I just, at the end of the day, that part is just never going to stop being the coolest thing in the world to me. So super humbled and grateful for that, regardless of the maybe cherry picking around Alex's take there.
Hey, I'll own it. All right. I said it. It was in jest, but it was a Hot Takes episode. You got to come out hot.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's plenty of people that agree with you as well. But want to really go in on this Rolling Stone article because I know you and I both had very strong and visceral reactions to reading this. So I'll let you go first, and then I'll come in behind with any additional thoughts that I have. But safe to say we weren't the biggest fans of this article.
Okay, I'm sorry. Like we talked about this article and earlier in the week, and I told you I read the first paragraph and I couldn't read anymore. I was like, this is awful. And then we talked about we're going to talk about it on this episode. I tried to go back and read it again, and I couldn't get through it again. I had to just skim it and see the horrible takes. This guy's an absolute clown and doesn't understand anything about Goose. Doesn't even get the song names right half the time, and doesn't has no media comprehension in my opinion. So it's just horrible. Like, how do you listen to Silver Rising and think it's about a bad trip? Like, it's clearly a werewolf song. Like, my 8-year-old niece knows it's a werewolf song. A grown adult should too.
Yeah, and I mean, even taking aside the Silver Rising flub, which I thought was like painfully obvious to everyone, he says California Magic might be the first yacht jam. And then later he goes on to this rant about how having an edge is built into the DNA of jam bands. And he goes on to list that like Dwayne Betts was volatile and Pigpen was gentle. So it was like already kind of undermining himself, but and talking more about the people. But then, like, if he was talking about the music having an edge, because he then mentioned Silver Rising having a bit of one, he doesn't go on to mention any other jam band songs that have an edge. So just like totally undercuts his argument shortly after making it. I don't know. I think Goose deserves to be represented better than that article did. And it just seemed like he could have done a lot more homework than he did, in my opinion.
Well, you mean you didn't like the song Red Birds? I love Red Birds. That's what he called it. Also, we didn't shout out the name of the article, which was Are Goose the New Dead? The New Fish? The New dot 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 Ed Sheeran? Like, I just want to punch this guy.
And that makes
The
two of
fuck is
us
that?
because, yeah, if you read anything about Goose, literally pick any other article. There are hundreds. Literally pick any of the other ones.
Well, Mike, you did text me this week when the article came out. You said the Rolling Stone guy may as well have had a monkey type that article. And I think based off of the way he misinterpreted every damn song on the album, he might have interpreted it as the monkeys, they work their abdominals as monkeys working a corporate 9 to 5 job and punching in keys with their abdominals. So that makes the article make a lot more sense.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty positive that that's the only logical conclusion any of us can reach at this point after reading that drivel.
I mean, I did skim through it, but it's just like my eyes are rolling in the back of my head at how much I was rolling my eyes at this thing, talking about the shadow of the dead lingering over Goose. This, like, I hate the torch talk and all that shit anyway. Like, I'm not the type of guy to delete comments from our social media, but whenever I see the torch talk, I'm just like, delete. It's so stupid. Like, no one gives a fuck. And then this guy's trying to do that with Ed Sheeran. Like, Ed Sheeran's not passing the torch to Goose, bro. Just dumb.
Yeah, no, bad assumptions and then poorly argumenting for those assumptions. So just double failing all the way through. But
He also called Paul Simon a jammer. So
which nobody in their right mind has ever said. So I don't know. It was
dumb.
it was disappointing to see such a major publication do our band like that. That's how I felt.
And I just want to shout out my wife, Sarah. She said, how does someone like this get employed by Rolling Stone?
It's come a long way down to the bottom, hasn't it?
All right, like, let's get back on a positive note because I am excited to talk about this album.
Yeah, so I think that's enough of that. This is I hope we never have a news and notes this long ever again, unless it's just because Goose has had the best week of any artist of all time. But with all that being said, let's get into our flow down because it's a big one. Obviously, it's album release week. We're all pumped. Everything Must Go came out. A little bit of album background. Second Goose album produced by D. James Goodwin, first being Dripfield, obviously. Recorded over 2 years. And think it's important to note that there were several personnel changes to the band during this time. They obviously recorded it during a lot of those changes. So just going to shout out the album personnel here because it's a lot of people. But we've obviously got Rick, Peter, Trevor, and Cotter. Also got the recently departed Jeff on here as well. D. James Goodwin even makes an appearance with guitar and drums contributions. Matt Campbell, Rick's songwriting partner and buddy from his Visudo days, contributes on synth and vocals. Stuart Bogey, who was at Luna Luna, contributes on the woodwinds, saxophone, and flute. Heather Woods Broderick does the cello. Dave Nelson on trombone. Andrew McGovern on trumpet. And of course, Ben Atkin also on the drums. So obviously, this took a village to make this album happen. Any like high level thoughts on just your overall first impressions of the album, or any thoughts on like what these changes in personnel and the time period the band recorded it over may have contributed to the album's feel and things like that, Alex?
I think that all this personnel seems overwhelming at first on this album when you look at the list, but it all fits together so great. Like, you would see a list like this and see how there's been personnel changes within just Goose itself, and then adding all these other people on top of it, you might think this thing comes off as a sloppy mess or something like that, and it just all works great. The horns add so much to all the songs they're part of. Heather Woods Broderick is on the album early, and I think she really shines on Everything Must Go out of the two tracks. I mean, obviously, Give It Time is gorgeous as well. You can hear the contributions by D. James Goodwin. You can hear the contributions by recently departed Jeff on the album. You can hear everyone clearly, but also it's just like everyone adds their own flavor to this album.
Yeah, 1,000%. And it can be a little bit, at least for me, it was the first time going through the album. It can be a little bit jarring just because of all the different texture changes. And you can, to your point, like the changes in personnel are very, very easy to hear. And you can hear the very big changes, especially with the percussion and the drum sections on every song. They're just wildly different track to track. And you can definitely hear that this was kind of a slow burn evolution over time. And while the changes can be jarring track to track, it also kind of speaks to your point that everyone is kind of perfectly chosen. Like we've got a Swiss Army knife here, and every tool is just perfectly equipped to each song. And it just all comes together really nicely. And we'll get to it later when we go through our track by track, but D. James Goodwin's contributions were really meaningful on this album for sure.
Yeah, I think it's just terrific, and I maybe didn't explain it as concisely or as cleanly as I'd want to, but you nailed it on that. You can really hear the flow of time in a lot of ways from track to track, just in the changes in tone, even from like Rick's guitar to the way the effects are used on the vocals for both Peter and Rick, to the way the drums sound between Ben and Cotter. Like it's just, you can really hear the flow of how this didn't all come together in one session. It was a flow of time and really speaks to what some might call a turbulent time in the band's history, but how even through all of that, they can come together and make something beautiful out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really good point that you just made because you do get kind of a snapshot into Rick's tone in 2023 and then Rick's tone more recently. And they're very, very different where he was at with his guitar tone at those times. So, very, very cool to kind of hear both sides of that as he's been, on his constant search for, as all guitarists are, for never ending perfect tone. But any high level thoughts on the album, just overall, like first impressions, things that jumped out at you outside of like the personnel changes? Are you liking it so far?
So I think I have to change my entire personality now because I actually really like this album, and I'm like noted studio album hater Alex here, published noted studio album hater from the New York Times Alex here, and I like this one, so I'm a fan. I think I'm gonna listen to this well beyond this episode whenever I want to tune in to hear just like some of these cool takes on these songs that we all love.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree. And I think maybe in the past I've been a little bit more favorable to the album side of things than you. Not much, because I mean, I'm still in the same boat where I'd rather hear the live versions that are 20 minutes long or whatever than a studio cut. But I still appreciate what Goose does. And they definitely always use their studio album to try and like reimagine songs or give you different takes on them that you maybe didn't like envision going with that song initially. And here, especially because there's so many songs that we have grown accustomed to and loving in the live setting, and we kind of know how they're going to go in a live setting, it was exciting and also challenging to hear some things sound different than what I was expecting. They definitely challenged my preconceived notions as to, what certain songs like Silver Rising and stuff would sound like. But overall, very happy. And the more times I listen to it, the more open I am to kind of these different takes that Goose wanted to put on these tracks.
Yeah, I really love that point, Mike. You can almost feel that Goose understands what songs are like quote unquote stale to people or something like that in a live setting for folks like us who go to so many shows, and they just reimagine the songs and like highlighted those parts of songs that you wouldn't expect to be highlighted to keep it interesting for us. But also, this is an album to rope in new fans who have never heard Goose, who maybe aren't jam band fans and are like indie rock fans or just rock fans and want to listen to a new album. And this really works in that way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's pretty clear that both of us have this as our new official number one Goose studio effort. And so, having said that, do you want to like maybe get into a little bit of a track by track analysis here and just walk people through our thoughts on the album?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So the album starts off with the title track. We've got Everything Must Go. Obviously, this song is typically a powerhouse in the live setting. for my money, they do something completely different with it here on the studio track. It's a brand new vision for me and my ears, anyways. But what did you think on it? What were your initial thoughts, and where are you at with it now?
So I think they smack you in the face right from the start of this album, kind of like as they tend to do with all of their studio albums. But I think this is different in the sense that this is probably going to be the most divisive track, in my opinion, of everything on the album because of the way it's reimagined. And I'm personally a big fan of what they were going for with the chopped up electronic drum track. And I'm usually like an E drum hater, but it almost sounds like they were trying to do a Radiohead nod here, getting some like Idiotech or like 15 Step or even like the King of Limbs kind of vibes from this song. I heard Kevin over on AAT made the David Gray comparison, which I think is spot on, chef's kiss. But I thought they struck a great balance here of letting this be completely unique and defining itself as it has the name of the album on it, but also capturing the main emotion that we've gotten from the live setting the last 2-3 years with this song. I think the way it flows into Give It Time is really, really remarkable because they're two completely different feels sonically on the album, even if the emotion is similar in terms of the tone of the song, if you get what I'm saying. So I just thought it was a great way to start, and you kind of hear the range of where this album's going to go early on within this track and the way it flows into the next track.
Yeah, definitely. Very well said. I wasn't expecting this direction at all for this song. In addition to the Radiohead and David Gray, which I think are good call outs as well, I also got kind of like Postal Service vibes from the electronic percussion and the almost skipping quality that they chose to put on the rhythm and vocals, all just the strange electronic sounds in general. And this will be kind of a trend for me, but the electronic sounds throughout this album, at sometimes they work really well for me. At other times, I find them kind of to be a hindrance. I do feel like on this song, it does sap away a very slight amount of the emotional energy and resonance that this song typically has for me. But I've got to say that after listening to it a few more times and getting to see how he's able to bring all the electronic elements at the end, where it kind of just hits you with everything that they've been incorporating and hinting at, all kind of just come together in a full fury. And it really does give a force and power to the ending. And so, even though the emotions are tamed down just ever so slightly for me, I still do like what they did here. It's just, there's obviously no way they can pull this off in a live setting. And at the end of the day, my preference would be that Everything Must Go kind of stays the way it is in a live setting. But for the album version, just doing something new with it, I do like it.
Yeah, that's 100% where I'm at as well. And just as a preview for the end of the episode, Mike and I did our hasty rankings of the songs on the album, with like 3 days of listening to this thing. Like, so this is going to shift probably by tomorrow. But I had this about middle of the pack on the album, which goes to show that I think this album is really great. I kind of like it top to bottom, but a song I really enjoy is middle of the pack here. So how about you, Mike? Where'd you have it roughly before I don't want to spoil our rankings.
Yeah, no, no. So like I will give the caveat as well that Alex kind of hinted at. I like every song on this album. So like let's just get that out of the way. I like every song. But we're splitting hairs. And so like if we're just talking about what's at the top of my list, what's at the bottom, I think this one is ranked near the bottom. So I'm not gonna say how far down near the bottom, but it is in bottom half of the bracket for sure for me. So
Mike, noted studio album hater.
don't publish that. I didn't say that. So track 2 was Give It Time. This one we've spent the most time with. All of us got to hear this one first, and so you and I've hung out with this one the longest. And so maybe your thoughts have changed on this. I'm not sure, but what were your thoughts on hearing this on the album version, even though you've had it for like 2 months or so?
Yeah, we've had this for a few months now, so the thoughts on it really haven't changed. I really loved the way it transitioned from Everything Must Go into this song. I thought it was seamless. And I think it's still a slam dunk call as the lead single for this album. It's just a great way to rope in new fans. Everyone who's a new fan that I've talked to always gushes on Give It Time and how it's on repeat. And I'm like, please listen to another track off the album because they're all great and they just loop and Give It Time. So I just think it's a slam dunk. I think it has an argument, even with all these listens, even months later and having recency bias. I still think it has an argument for the best vocal recording as a whole on the entire album. Just sounds absolutely incredible. And I think this song really has cemented its place and belonging within the structure of shows, but on this album, to represent kind of that turbulence we alluded to within the band, and as a theme to just, give it time, settle down, let things shake out the way they're supposed to. Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, totally agree. I love the quote that Rick had in the, I believe it was an Uproxx article in January, where he said in the past there was always this question of should it be the more introspective and quieter, or should it be the more jubilant? And I always liked the idea of it being both, but never found a way to do it. And clearly they found a way to do it with D. James Goodwin. And I'll just say that we've talked about this song a lot in the past, but I truly do still believe that this is the most polished and radio friendly song the band has ever officially recorded in studio. And while I don't know if it's my personal favorite off the album, it's incredible and just so well done. There's no misses on it. And it's a really great entry point to share with friends who are maybe not into Goose or not into jam bands at all. It's probably the best jumping off point that I could think of.
Most definitely. And shout out to Goose being a Christian rock band.
And to that point, we'll come back to that because there's 2 or 3 other instances on this album where I was just thinking to myself, man, it's going to be harder and harder to refute that when people try and give me shit.
No, it's always a funny joke to crack when it comes to Goose. I think that you absolutely nailed it, that this is by far the most radio friendly, new fan friendly studio cut there is right now. And yeah, I really look forward to seeing how the thing takes off. I'm surprised it hasn't gotten as much radio play as I thought it might on these like indie and rock charts, but I think maybe now with the album officially being out, it'll see more ears and eyes, and we'll see where it goes.
Definitely. And I think a lot of people are going to be very curious to hear our thoughts on this next one because it has got the community jumping and very, very excited. Obviously, all of us were wondering what the hell to make of a track called Dustin Hoffman. And I don't know that it was what you expected, but give me your thoughts on Dustin Hoffman. Did it live up to the hype for you?
I mean, if I'm being honest, I had like no expectation, no clue what it was going to be. I thought maybe there was like the potential to just be like a joke track or something. And this is a banger, dude. This is like big modern banger hype levels when I heard this thing the first time. From the get-go, it sounds like it should be like the 70s style anthem for Frankie Bosco and Terry Alfredo riding their scooters on the Shenanigans nightclub promo. Or it could like replace the background music during Anchorman when they're all walking up to the camera at the beginning of the movie, It's like super vintage vibes, but so funky. Hitting that strut in your bell bottoms, And then we get into this like feel good poppy, like indie adjacent chorus. And it's like that kind of dichotomy that Goose likes to do with a lot of their songs, where it's like you're genre blending a little bit and it just works. Like you wouldn't expect it to necessarily flow the way it does, and it just sounds terrific. And you're just licking your chops the entire time you listen to the main portion of the song. And then we go into the jam where you can really hear the potential at the end of the song. It's a short jam on the studio cut, starting off with some low droning synth that just leads into this like kind of blissy outro that is just going to play over so well. Like we're going to get like a Philly tumble out of this thing, I'm convinced. Absolutely in love.
Yeah, I definitely love it as well. It hits you in the face right away with its insistent funk and not wasting any time, more or less forcing you to start dancing. Extremely hooky guitar, and the horns work so well. And like we said earlier, such a good reminder that Goose as a band works incredibly well with a horn section when they choose to do it. And that chorus, it does take a completely different route. I'm totally with you that they love to put these interesting juxtapositions between a chorus and a verse that don't sound necessarily like they maybe belong together at first. I fell in love with the funky verses immediately, but after 10 plus listens, the whole track has fully won me over. This is very high up on my favorite tracks rankings list, I'll say. But I will throw out there that contemporary 90s chorus, that one is one to me where it almost borders on Christian rock, the chorus part. So it's just kind of got that soaring, overly polished feel to it. But because there's such an interesting dichotomy between the verse and the chorus, I do think this is, to your point, going to have a ton of jam potential this summer, and I cannot wait to catch it at All Good or wherever else I see it on summer tour.
I really hope they debut it for the folks at Viva El Gonzo to catch this, because I just think there's so much hype around it now, and it's just such a great tune, and there's just the possibilities are endless with this thing. Like rip off another 38-minute song, Dustin Hoffman for the folks at Viva El Gonzo, give it the big modern treatment, because the hype is through the roof.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any way they don't get it in Mexico. It was 3 shows anyways. But number 4, we've got Your Direction. This is an interesting one too because this one came out relatively early. We've even actually had the video for a little while to sit with, which is a very fun and quirky video. We talked about that recently. What are your thoughts on Your Direction, our favorite band's yacht rock anthem?
Yeah, Goose is a yacht rock band now. Christian rock, yacht rock, we're everything. But if they don't time this song up to play like right at sunset this summer, like what are we doing? Like this is the perfect sunset, good vibe song.
Yes.
I think it's just a great earworm pop tune. And, everyone makes the obvious comparison to Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. It is totally Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. I don't care. It's just terrific. And just real quick, worth noting, this is originally the pseudo song for folks who might not know. There's some performances floating around from 2012. If you want to hear how it's changed since then, I think our buddies at WTED have that. You can request it on their app. But I think if you dig around enough online, you can also find those 2012 versions. But yeah, just a really feel good, fun pop tune.
Totally. I'm going to be honest, though. This one, it has some moderate jam potential, although I'm not expecting them to use it in that way. And on the one hand, I'm always so grateful, amazed, and impressed by how committed they are to trying new sounds and genres, and so impressed that they always seem more than capable and up to the task of doing that new thing so well right away. But all that being said, this isn't really the type of song I'm going to be really excited to hear in a live setting. It's kind of easy listening, but it's hard for me to rank it because I give them an A plus on the production and execution and what they were trying to go for, and it likely will be something I listen to around the house, but I don't know how excited I would be to hear it live, and so it was just a very tough song for me to rank because I feel like they nailed the assignment, but it wasn't an assignment necessarily I was hoping they would take up, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. And you know me well, Mike, and probably people who listen here probably have picked this up by now if you're a long-time listener. It takes me a while to warm up on things sometimes, and I liked Your Direction from the get-go, but listening to the live versions we've gotten now so far from Jazz Fest and from CBS Saturday Morning, it feels like I like the studio cut better. Like there's not enough of like the vocal flair and like the indie sound to it on top of the yacht rock vibes that really matches like the feel you get from the studio cut in a live setting yet. I'm sure they'll tinker with it and get it there, but and maybe it's just because we haven't gotten any clean audio really. We've gotten something from CBS that was recorded who knows when, and then Jazz Fest audio with like wind whipping and stuff. Like hopefully we get some soundboards and I can change my mind, but I'm curious to see where it goes in the live setting because I do like the song. I don't know that it's going to be one that's clamored for as much as these jam vehicles, but it's a fun short song and I could see it jamming out to like a fun place for a few minutes.
Yeah, definitely. And nobody would be more pleasantly surprised than me. I just think I'm not maybe the target audience for easy listening type songs. And so they killed it, but just not my cup of tea, I don't think. And
you don't have a yacht, Mike? You don't have a yacht to listen to this on? Come on.
I don't have a yacht, and I'm not listening to Hall & Oates all Saturday. So, again, it just, I may not be the target audience.
With all those big negative dollars we've been making with this podcast, the money we've been losing on this podcast, we can definitely afford a yacht.
This is a spending expense. It's not a making money thing.
No, sir.
No, it's a labor of love. But next up, we've got my favorite live track, Thatch. Obviously, I was super nervous about how this one would come out. What are your thoughts on Thatch? Because I feel like this may be one of the first ones. We haven't talked directly about our rankings, but I feel like just from some of the things we've hinted at, maybe this one isn't your favorite. But let me hear your thoughts on it to see.
So, caveating this, that I do like this whole album. I heard this song the first time and absolutely hated it, the studio cut, because I'm Thatch is like a top 3 live cut for me. Total banger. Look forward to it every time I'm even on the couch tour listening to it. But I had listened to it on speakers first, and then I put on headphones, and I started to warm up to it a little bit as a studio cut. There's definitely like a much grittier, harsher tone to Rick on this track than we've heard on the album so far, and probably through the rest of the album, honestly. It's even harsher than kind of what we get in the live setting, in my opinion. We got the clav going, even though it's kind of light in the background. The drums and the percussion on this thing just dominate the song at times, almost to the point sometimes where it gets a little too muddy for me, depending on what part of the song. But I just think it's not made for me. And I think that seeing the feedback people have given it who are not Goose fans, who've never heard Thatch before, and they like it, tells me everything I need to know. It's like I'm just too attached to the live version. And I think this doesn't capture the energy from the road tested songs as well as the rest of the road tested songs, in my opinion. So it's a cool vibe to Thatch. It's just not for me. It's definitely low on my rankings, but I can see why people like it, and maybe I'm just too attached to live cuts.
Well, I mean, to be fair to you, it's really hard because when you hear Thatch live, it's like there's electricity coursing through your blood. So I mean, it's as energetic as a live cut can be. So I think trying to capture it on an album was always going to be difficult. Maybe not impossible, but definitely difficult. Personally, I adore the execution on this. I don't think they can come close to the voltage that they have live, but while this naturally lacks some energy in comparison, I love the production and I love the drums. I love the hi-hat work coming through so clear, keeps up with that snappy tight feel of the verses. Trevor sounds really incredible on this one, bass almost groaning and all of his little licks and fills coming like perfectly through, especially on headphones. And I love the filter that they have Rick going through. It alters his vocal tone slightly, but fits the somewhat crunchy vibe of the song. And then lastly, the guitar solo here, it feels like it's not too far off of the feel from what you might get in a live setting. The guitar effect is different, but it didn't really take away for me, at least personally. So overall, very pleased with how my favorite track came out. It is not at like the top of the list, but it is closer to the top than the middle. So I was very happy with that.
And that's what matters here. I mean, you're the Thatch man. I'm the Thatch man. That's Mike. I'm glad you brought up the guitar tone. Sorry, I had to get that in. But I'm glad you brought up the guitar tone on the solo. I think that's been very divisive. I do think I like the shot they took on that, even if it's not for me. It's very like going for that Jack White kind of sound with like the screechy guitar, and I can appreciate them trying something new there, even if it doesn't hit my ears the way it might hit yours.
Yeah, totally. And again, to reiterate, we like this album and every song on it. So, I mean, this is just semantics at this point. And next up, I don't think we're as divided on this one, but
I'm not shutting it off like Studio Arrow.
we're doing really good as long as nothing is Studio Arrow for Alex.
Yeah, right.
And so I think this next track, Lead Up, I don't think we're very divided on this, but why don't you give me your thoughts on Lead Up? Because we and the people have had a lot of time to listen to this one as well.
Yeah, we've had a while to listen to this, and I think between Thatch and Lead Up, this is the stretch of the album where I guess, quote unquote, I struggled a little bit compared to the rest of the album. I think that like it's just because of expectations from the live setting. These are two high energy songs, and it feels like they took a vacuum cleaner and like sucked out 50% of the energy from both for me. And I actually think that the guitar tracks on this are really pleasant and pretty. I think the keys sound all right. Like it's not enough, in my opinion, and the tone isn't perfect, but they're fine. Very mainstream pop punk kind of sound. And I think it might have success as a single in some ways because of that. But where I struggle the most is that it doesn't have that punch during the chorus that I've come to expect. And it therefore doesn't hit the emotional high you get from the song when you're listening to it at a show. No huge guitar shots, no harsh enunciation. It's just kind of like laid back. And with the drumming background I've got, I just have qualms with the snare sound on this too. It's very booming, and I think it sound better with like a crisper rock sound too to keep the driving feel that you get from the emotion behind the song. But I can see why some people like it. It's just too laid back for me for a song that like is supposed to be like a headbanger, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, we are basically totally aligned on this one. So I'll be brief because you said that really well. But I think this is, I'm not going to say my least favorite, but because I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's near the bottom. The drums sound a bit sterile for me. The keys in the second verse and harmonies seem to soften it, and it feels like this should be a little bit more rough around the edges. because Lead Up Live to me calls to mind early 90s rock in so many of its elements. And I think it's one of the, to your point, heavier hitting songs in the catalog. And so to me, like, I can appreciate that in a lot of studio efforts, things are going to get polished. I think that this is one where they definitely needed to live a little bit more dangerously and play it a little bit more rough around the edges. So I love Lead Up as a song, but this take on it just didn't necessarily work for me. And I'm very sorry about that because it just, I wanted to like it. And you and I both love hearing that song live.
Oh, totally. I think it's one of my personal highlights of the show, even though it's a shorter song, doesn't get jammed. I just always am happy to hear it. And the studio cut, I don't hate it. It's like I'll listen to it. I've been listening to the whole album. I haven't skipped anything, any listens through this album, but I just always want to go back to those live versions where you get that smack in the face from that first chord that Rick hits in the chorus, and it just doesn't ever hit that high for me. Although I do think like the ooze and stuff all sound gorgeous, like at the beginning and during the intermissions. It just never hits that energy high I want.
Yeah, 1000%. And I like every song on this album. And it's just basically my way of saying me, who knows absolutely nothing about music compared to Goose, would have done something different with this track. So take that for what it is.
And I will say the songs that I heard initially, and I was like, I don't know if this is for me at first. I've come to really like appreciate a lot more of them. I'm not saying this is like hyperbole or like to be that guy who's like hyped about everything. I'm not that guy. I am not afraid to speak negatively about stuff I don't like for anyone who knows me. And I think it's all really come together for me when I've heard the album together more than when I heard these tracks individually to appreciate where they were going more, even if it isn't my favorite part of the album.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can both agree it's a very cohesive vision from top to bottom. Next up, we've got one I think we're both a little bit more high on. We've got Animal. I got to say, I dig this one a lot. What are your thoughts on Animal here?
So speaking of singles, we talked about Lead Up and Thatch. How was this not a single over those two, in my opinion? Like,
Yes.
that sounds haterish, but this is insane. Like, they threw absolutely everything you could at this track. The horns sound absolutely outstanding. From the intro to the end of the first chorus is just this amazing slow crescendo with like these like sparkling, swirly synth vibes. You got the flute going, you got the bird chirps, and it's just building and building until the explosion of the horns just like kick you in the pants and get you up and dancing. It made me feel foolish listening to our past album reviews using the term like overproduced and stuff, because this is the definition of quote unquote overproduced, and it rules. Layers on layers on layers on this thing, and I think it really captured the fun and the magic from this song really well. I think my main complaint from this thing, honestly, is like there's no elephant sound in it. Like, that's it. I love this track.
I dig it a lot too. I love the trippy elements mixed in with the animal noises starting it off. The woodwinds sound absolutely amazing. The track ends up, to my ear anyway, sounding a bit more 70s, whereas in the live setting, it has typically felt more like pop rock to my ears. But I honestly think the 70s vibes works even better, maybe, because it's definitely just as fun and maybe more energy. I love the synths and the extra snappy snare. And then getting the horns around the second chorus really just take things up a notch and truly like elevates it. The solo along with the breakdown also really good. I just think that they absolutely nailed this. And while it's different than what I hear in Animal in a live setting, it's not that different. And everything that they did change made it better.
Oh, 100% agree. And like we were alluding to earlier on during the show, this isn't necessarily an album for us who go to a lot of shows. This track definitely appeals to the folks who go to a lot of shows, though, because you're getting a totally fresh take on Animal that just like gives it an amazing amount of energy, and it just sounds so nice to hear something different on this track that can sometimes feel a little stale to the folks who are like listening to every show multiple times. I think it sounds incredible, and all the props to D. James Goodwin on this, because his vision on this just came to perfect fruition, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe that would have been a good caveat to throw out at the beginning. If you're a jam band enthusiast, you're probably not the target audience for a studio album basically ever, because it's just never going to match up to the energy of live shows. But I think that should say even more about how thoroughly impressed we are with this studio effort, how highly we're talking about it, because, I mean, good Lord. Up next, we've got your favorite song, Redbird, and I'm going to let you have the floor here.
This is my favorite song to see live. I think I'm way too attached to the live version, so it's not necessarily top of my ranks on this album, but I think it's solid. And we got studio vintage vibe, dude. Like they just nailed the vintage vibe tone from Peter, and it sounds so good on this. I think they also captured the guitar really well. I think Peter's vocals sound great. Where I really struggle is the electronic drums on this one, and they seem like they're like a touch too turned up. Like they're the loudest part of the track, and I think the loudest part of the track should be the keys and Peter. There's this persistent snare shot that just keeps showing up a little bit too often too, where like when Cotter came on the band, like how they stripped down the chorus of Silver Rising. I feel like this is like the reverse of that, where there's too much drums, where there could be more space on the studio cut. There's also like this like synth sound in the chorus where it just feels a little bit out of place for me. Like it just sticks out to me so much because it's just so different. So again, I'm way too attached to how it sounds live. So, and it being my favorite, I'm really biased towards that. And it made me want to just go back and turn on my favorite versions of Redbird from this past year. But the outro of the song, I got to give it props because the outro of the song is absolutely bananas. Like Trevor Party. It's like slapping the bass all over the place. We even have these little like guitar licks from Rick that sound like a nod to like emo, pop punk, even like a little bit like metalcore vibes, like to the like three fans who know what I'm talking about. It sounds like the receiving end of Sirens or like emo rock kind of stuff in the background. It sounded like they went to the Warped Tour in the early 2000s. And I think that ending is really where it shines, even if it does get a little congested and like overwhelming at times. I think that's the best part of this track, and I kind of have it middle of the pack to lower on this album, but I was really glad to see it get the studio treatment, and I think this song means the world to the band. So happy to see it make it here.
Yeah, we are definitely super aligned on this one, buddy. I think the drums are just too busy for my taste. I do like the mix on Peter's vocals. I don't think the track needed the strings. And to your point, some of this could just be a big adjustment from what we're used to hearing, but it feels a tad overworked and overproduced to me. I think just knowing what the song is about and the lyrical content and just the amount of times in a live setting that you just get the focus on keys, stripped down progression from Pete. I think that this one just kind of takes maybe the elements and adds a bit too many of them for me, whereas I'd prefer to keep that live stripped down feeling. I do agree with you that I love the ending when it gets really dense with the vocal harmonies and just general cacophony of every element at once. But I don't know that it makes it worth it having all that at the end, the journey in between, because I'd really just like the focus to stay on Pete's lyrics and singing and keys in the verses. And so I think you lose track a little bit of that. And maybe this was just a case of, for my personal taste, anyways, doing a little bit too much.
That's super well said. I agree. It almost like lost its way. That Redbird lost its way a little bit with it trying to just get a little cute. I think it'll play well for folks who've never heard the song before, but once you kind of feel the stripped down version of it, I think anyone who like listens to this might like it. Go see a live version of it and then be like, "Oh, I like this sound way better." So we'll see how it plays. I think it's great regardless.
Yeah, and again, always a big fan of them doing something new, and this is definitely a new version of Redbird. I could not run back to my live cuts fast enough. So that's just me, and that's my personal problem. But um, next up we have Atlas Dogs, and I'm pretty high on this one. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna say where I've got it on the list, obviously, but I'm very high on this one. Were you impressed as well, Alex?
I'm really impressed with this one. I think of all the tracks on the album, it's between this Atlas Dogs and Give It Time for being the two that sound like the truest to the live sound. Just captured it perfectly in the studio. Super clean version of this song, and we all love to see it at a show. I guess because it sounds so close to the live sound is why I really struggled on like where I would rank this for this episode. And I wasn't necessarily like super wowed. I was just like, oh, this is like really great. This sounds like Atlas Dogs. Like this, someone could like play this in the background 200 feet away or something on a speaker, and I would think like Goose was playing live somewhere or something. Like you wouldn't know, at least just because of the length you'd know, but like you'd be like, oh, this sounds like Goose. This sounds like Atlas Dogs from a show. So I think it's just really clean, really well done. I think the segue out of this thing into the next song is amazing, and I think it'll rope fans in. But I'm gonna just go back to live versions because this sounds like a live version.
It does, but they just made like two subtle changes with this track that I really think make all the world of difference for me. They well, first of all, they kind of split the difference with giving you a little taste of both intros for Atlas Dogs. Um, but I really love the strings make a huge impact and elevate the song while also not really distracting from it. But by far my favorite element is I love the choices with the drums. Instead of favoring the more driving rhythm that you typically hear in a live setting, they've got a busy, more eclectic arrangement that it doesn't always affect the song directly, but there are definitely times where the eclectic mix on the drums kind of gives it a weightless, airy quality that really opens it up and allows it space to breathe. And so, like, when I was struggling typing my notes about it, because to your point, it always did sound like Atlas Dogs, but when you like kind of like focus on picking out the few things that they did do different, it really opened it up for me, and I was really impressed with how it was the same but different. I just really love how they captured the feel of the song.
You're totally right. There are little flares in there, and I maybe didn't give those enough credit. That are like you're never gonna hear those at a live show, or maybe very rarely. I was just thinking like if I have this playing on like my Alexa speaker in the house and it's playing, I wouldn't know if it was a live cut or a studio cut if I'm like halfway across the house until I came and looked at the track. That kind of thing. It's just so well done and captures it so well, in my opinion. That's almost like a testament to it for me.
Very well said. Yeah, definitely 1,000% agree there. California Magic. This is another one that goes wildly in a different direction than I was expecting. It still sounds like California Magic, but it's definitely made some changes. What did you think about the changes on this one?
So I would say this is the biggest surprise of the album for me. And that's including like the two new songs because I was expecting to be surprised by those. Like, oh, like we don't know what's coming with these. But this California Magic is a freaking banger, man. It's a little bit slowed down even from what we hear live, I would say. But it feels like a track you'd expect to hear in like a dark, big band setting in New Orleans in a small room. It's even got like kind of like that charming like grit and grime of New Orleans a little bit that makes it such a loved place to go see music. Got the saloon keys going a little bit early and then the horns, man. Oh my gosh. The horns make the song. Like this is probably like easily top 10 studio cut of Goose all time for me because I just look forward to listening to this even more than live cuts a lot of the time. It's just so good and it transforms the song into something totally different from what we've come to expect of it.
Did I accidentally like email you my notes in the middle of the night or something? Because I mean, good lord, um, I said so many similar things. It's another favorite for me, and the horns really do take it to another level. Literally wrote verbatim. Love the slightly drunken feel the verses have, like they are actually staggering forward on Bourbon Street. Has this very NOLA feel to it. Um,
Wow.
so we were very aligned. I pictured the same big band smoky room setting that you were picturing. I love New Orleans, so that was
Amazing.
really cool because all the versions of California Magic, I would have never imagined in my wildest dreams that it had this kind of potential to be this type of thing. But love the pedal steel from D. James Goodwin on it and Pete's clav solo. It feels so much grander and more epic in scale than California Magic, which can typically be a little bit static in the live settings. But even though it feels so much grander and more epic, it never at any point feels over the top or gratuitous. This is one of my highest rated tracks on the album for sure. And to your point, yeah, totally shocked at how awesome this is.
Yeah, same. It's way up there for me, and you absolutely nailed it. It's funny we aligned on this because we definitely did not talk about this with
No,
me being out of the country for Goose's biggest week of songs for work. I was way behind the ball on a lot of things.
just yeah, amazing stuff, man. And this is just going to speak to how strong this album closes. But the next one, Feel It Now, another fan favorite, completely different for this one as well. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this because I don't think this has come up in any of our chats, even briefly, but it's a big deal.
Yeah, we're hitting like the peak of this album, in my opinion. This is another standout from an outstanding album. The Funk Party. stays in kind of like that same club we were talking about from California Magic, but it like ramps up the energy and gets into this jazzy funk party. I think that the traditional keys sound that they're rocking on this sounds so terrific, dancing around the disco horns and having the horns take over those lines that Rick usually has to fill in the live setting really allows him to focus on like the rhythm, Telecaster funk sound, doing his best Corey Wong kind of impression, the easy shit, of course. And it's a nice note to anchor things on this funk track, and it's just an absolute bop.
Yeah, I can be brief as well. I love the heavy touches on this one. This one was not handled lightly or with care. They just completely changed it around entirely. And it's an example of something that sounds completely different to what you hear live that just absolutely works so cohesively to do something brand new and different. The horns and leaning into the 80s and jazzy elements turn this into a smoke show. And unfortunately, outside of guests showing up, we probably won't get to hear this particular take on Feel It Now in a live setting. But either way, just think it's so cool and refreshing that this is definitely going to be on my short list of Goose Studio songs that stays in my rotation because it's offering me something brand new.
Oh, absolutely. And especially now that we don't have the extra percussion in the band, that's already like a big loss for this song, in my opinion, even though it's still great without it. It's just was always such a highlight of Feel It Now before. And then the horns on top of it, like, holy crap, this is an amazing studio cut. Again, very highly rated on my rankings, along with the next song. Like, we can just keep gushing at this point.
Yeah, this is like just such a strong close to the album. Like, good Lord. So, Iguana song up next, the other brand new song that none of us had any exposure to until Friday. What are your thoughts on the brand new song, Dustin Hoffman's brother here?
On an initial listen to the song, my first take was this sounds like the second cousin of Time to Flee. Like, totally got the same vibes. And then I looked it up and found out it's written by the Great Blue Guys. So, of course, it does. Props to Nicholas Hanna, Seth Zucker, and Ethan Michael, along with Peter and Rick, of course. And it's got those nice, like, dueling guitar harmonies throughout the verses with these percussive lyrics where it's, like, very intentional the way that they say them rhythmically. The bass shots are in there to anchor it down and are super strong to keep that marching feel going. And then we go full Nintendo Entertainment System, baby, with this 8-bit chiptune synth in the chorus for this like really like geeky but fun poppy chorus. And then after the second chorus, we just pivot into like ripping 70s guitar solo that goes into like psychedelic, non-linear crescendo to the finish line. It's just really cool to hear them lean into the jamming really fully on this track. And I think this will be another absolute monster in the live setting.
Yeah, this is up there for my top track on the album. I definitely feel like it sounds like the most pure Peter song. You get his influence on it like right away. Also sounds kind of something like Fish might have written at some point, but I love the very chilled out funky vibes and it just the overall quirkiness that Peter can add to a song. It feels like something that also just works well in any number of your typical summer hangout situations, barbecues, beaches. Like it's a song that I want like in all those types of scenarios. I really like the synths to your point, along with Trevor's expansive and rambling lines, keeping the song super playful. But also, like, there's a big contrast between Peter's and Rick's sections in terms of vocals, and also how just the song shifts musically between those two. But man, that long outro, it just seems like if we don't get some monster jams from this in 2025, it would be like one of the biggest disappointments I've ever had because it just seems like this song is tailor made to just be bold and adventurous.
Yeah, like I think it's probably a little bold to say it, but like it immediately cements itself as like the top, if not one of the top few psychedelic ramps for a jam immediately, in my opinion. There's just so much potential there, and it's just such a cool song. Like Time to Flee jams are amazing, and I feel like this one has endless potential, just like Time to Flee, where anytime you're gonna get a jam out of this thing, it's gonna rule.
Yeah, and real quick to your point, I would love to see those two songs actually linked together at a show once or twice this year. I think that would be a really cool thing to do.
Oh, that would be so sick. Like, let's get the Great Blue like set, like a whole Great Blue kind of set where they all link together. Get some Doc Brown in there too. Like, just go
Yeah,
ham with it.
like Yeti, Doc Brown, Time to Flee, Iguana song, back into Time to Flee. Like I'm thinking something like that would just be really, really neat.
Oh, That'd be so sick. The pancakes closer. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Now we're cooking with gas.
We're cooking with gas, baby.
Second to last, we've got a huge fan favorite, Silver Rising. This was obviously going to be a huge deal to anyone listening. What are your thoughts on how they handled this one?
This is one that also has grown on me a little bit. When I try to remove my emotions from the live cuts I love so much in terms of how I analyze this studio track, I think it's very clean sounding. The keys sound really gorgeous. You got the slow build with the toms. Thankfully, it's not the like machine gun snare drum that we've heard in older cuts. And the marching kind of like descending lick from the chorus matches the energy from what we'd expect at a show. I think it represents that pretty well. I think the vocal harmonies on the outro between Peter and Rick and that ripping kind of like werewolf transformation guitar solo sound really clean. I just think it would have been better served overall without the kind of chorus effect that's on Rick's vocals. That's my only real qualm. I think it sounds better as like a clean one track, just Rick being emotional and representing his normal vocals on this thing like we get in the live setting.
Yeah, it's amazing how much we're aligned on so much of this. I have very similar things to say, just slightly different. It's very similar to me as Everything Must Go as far as tracks on this album, where I just wasn't fully sold on the electronic touches at first. And I think a lot of that is just partially a me problem. It's just so different than what I'm used to. And I've listened to Silver Rising live so many thousands of times. But I think at this point where I'm at with it, with a bunch more listens, and of course the ever important final listens with headphones, I'm at the place where I kind of appreciate everything they did here. I think the additional layers of guitars and keys and various enhancements to the vocal mixes, they do kind of pay off in the same way that Everything Must Go. Whereas here, when you get to the, you know, giant, powerful, epic vocal harmony explosion at the end, I think it does hit a little bit more harder than it does normally, just because of adding all those elements, and they all kind of just work together into this giant mountain of sound. And I think the same thing happens for me with Everything Must Go. It's just a question for me of, is that payoff at the end of those two tracks worth what I feel are maybe things that don't fit or work as well together as the song is kind of building in the beginning, when it's quieter, when it hasn't hit that peak, when it hasn't hit that culmination. Sometimes those electronic sounds and flourishes can be a little bit more distracting, but at the same time I have to acknowledge they do pay huge dividends when you get to the ends of both those respective tracks. So I'm kind of on the fence a little bit.
Yeah, it was a very tough one to rank because it's not bad by any means. It's
No.
again another song that's just like so much emotion gets attached to it when you hear it live, and that's the struggle when you have things that are so long road tested and then releasing a studio cut. It's like the parts that you latch onto the most in the live setting aren't going to be the parts they want to emphasize the most in the studio necessarily, but I think it would have been a wise choice in a lot of ways to latch onto those because like any new fan I've shown Silver Rising loves the live cuts.
Yes.
I think it would have been really wise to just not tinker with it too much, but it's still great. Like it's still good. I think it would have worked better if they just were themselves a little more on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm kind of at it the same place where I am with Redbird as well. And then last up, How It Ends. I think it's fitting for this to come right after Silver Rising, and obviously it's only been played the one time live at the Cap Theater. But what are your thoughts on what they did here with How It Ends?
Now, How It Ends, I feel the opposite way, where I think this is absolutely incredible. This is a highlight from the album. If you close your eyes and you weren't looking at the track list, you'd think it was like some cover you didn't know with Rick guesting with the Allman Brothers, like gigging at the Brothers show. The guitar tone sounds so Allman Brothers to me. And I think it really is like a very like well captured emotion to this song, even though we only have one reference point in the live setting. I think it outshines that one so far. And I'm really curious to see where it goes in the live setting. But yeah, I just think it's a really straightforward, almost classic rock sounding rock pop banger. Great way to close the album out. Almost sounds optimistic, even though it's kind of darker themed.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's fitting for it to come after Silver Rising. Love that we get the Werewolf trilogy completed all on the same album. Was not really sure what to expect with that only one play, but I really think it's outstanding. I love the tone on Rick's guitar here, very almond like, has a kind of mellow vibe, but it's very, very polished and sounds amazing. In some ways, it kind of reminds me like almost like a cousin to Hunger Sight. And I'm very interested with it only having the one play, how much of a factor it's going to be with the tour, because obviously now that it's on an album, I think people are going to get really antsy and optimistic and hopeful that we are going to get it this tour. But who knows what Goose has planned for it. But with nailing this version of it, I'm really hoping that we do get to see it quite a bit this summer.
I think we will. I mean, that's kind of just their MO. I think this was a song they knew they were going to release when they played it at the Cap, and then it just kind of fell by the wayside. And now that it's out and so loved, it's like they're going to rock it.
I agree. And that's how we're going to keep it. Positive thinking. How it ends is going to be around all the time this summer. So that is kind of our walk through the tracks one by one. Do you want to kind of just, we've hinted at some of where we've got these songs, some high, some low. Do you want to kind of just go through like your official list here, Alex, and give the people your hasty rankings?
Are we going from bottom to top or top to bottom?
Yeah, so I think if you're up for it, maybe we'll build suspense and go from bottom to top.
Oh, sounds great. Yeah, let's do it. So I feel almost a little guilty saying this, but my number 14 song is Thatch. And for the reasons I said, it's my last ranked on the album. I'm just so attached to the live cut, and I feel like this one's too low key for my taste, but still a solid listen.
I hear you. I'm not crying inside at all. It's fine. Yeah. My buddy didn't hurt my feelings whatsoever. It's cool. 14 for me is definitely Lead Up. Yeah, for me, definitely Lead Up. That's my least favorite. The drums, huge problem for me, and the keys in the second verse, I just feel like that song needed to be more rough around the edges. So yeah, that's my bottom track.
Well, that's a good segue because my number 13 track is Lead Up. Similar reasons to be noted. I think that it doesn't hit the highs. It doesn't hit you in the face with that really punchy emotional chorus the way that I would hope for it to. But again, still a solid listen. I think I had a really hard time ranking the lowest songs on this album because I do like them all.
Yeah, and just like you hurt my heart with Thatch, we're gonna hurt yours a little bit. My second from the bottom is Redbird, your favorite song. So I don't feel great about it, but like I said, it's just a bit overproduced for me. And that song has a great emotional feeling and message, and I just wish they retained a little bit more of the intimacy of that song.
Joke's on you, man, because Redbird's my next one, number 12. I love Redbird, but it's like a knife to my heart that I have to rank it this low. Yeah, I really do like the studio cut. It's just that drum track is just a little too loud for me, and I really love all the Peter vocal haters are gonna hate me for this, but I really like the way Peter sounds on this song, and I really want him highlighted on it. And the drums were almost too overwhelming, no matter where I listened, on my headphones, through speakers, through like my shitty phone speaker. I tried it everywhere, and the drums always stood out too much.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So next up for me behind that is actually Everything Must Go, the title track. And we talked about it a little bit.
Wow.
I like where they get to by the end of it. Like I said, I do think the last third of that song is a very powerful experience, and it still retains the raw beauty of the song, but I think it's maybe just at the end of the day a little bit too electronic for me and a little bit too far from the Everything Must Go I've come to know and love.
We're going to slice this episode up to make it sound like you hate the album Everything Must Go Now. No, I can respect it. I knew the song would be divisive. I have it higher than you, but I understand the criticisms because we're all biased in the way that we're attached to different live versions of these road tested songs, like we said. Personally, I'm a fan of kind of the Radiohead vibes, but it's also not something I'm going to listen to on the regular, so I totally respect that. So let's see. Next up here, number 11, another surprising one for me. I had Silver Rising next, and that's because I didn't really know where to rank it, honestly. I think it's more of a testament to the songs above it than it is about how I feel about Silver Rising, because I do really enjoy the studio cut of this. It's very, very clean. The only really qualm I had with it versus like my preference is how Rick's vocals sound.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. And Silver Rising will be coming up here on my list here in just a second. But next up at 11, I've got Your Direction. And again, I said this earlier. I actually give them an A plus on what they were trying to do, what their goal was. I think they nailed it, hit it out of the park. It's just not the type of song that I'm generally looking for. So it's no fault of theirs. It's just not my type of genre of music necessarily. So had it at 11.
Well, damn. Spoiler alert: we're not that far off, but I understand. It is hard because when I look at the list of what's above some of these songs I'm naming off now, it's like, oh, these are all just so good. I had to rank these songs lower because this album is quality top to bottom. And yeah, I can see how Your Direction falls into that trap because it is a great pop tune. It's just different and not necessarily what you're always looking for a lot of when you go see Goose. So I understand that. Number 10, and this one is also a little surprising when I look at it, but also I don't know where I'd put it above this, is Atlas Dogs for me. And I think it's just an outstanding, clean recording. And the reason it's ranked is because ranked where it is at 10 for me is because it just sounds like a live version, and like I was more wowed by the studio production of the other songs and just them being more unique. But I think this is absolutely terrific, and I could see this being a very successful single for them even in the future.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think we're starting to get to the point now. Once you get to around like 10 or 9 through 1 on my list, you're starting to get to songs that I all like genuinely like adore the versions of them. So just speaks to how high quality this album is. But at 10, I've got Silver Rising. Like I said, just one of the ones where I wasn't fully sold on the electronic touches at first, and very similar to EMG and Redbird, I do think it pays dividends at the powerful endings. I don't know that necessarily it's worth it to go on the journey in the beginning with the song, the changes that they made, but still really love it. Still really beautiful, and it tells an epic tale in an epic way. So there's no bad apples on this one.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. Okay, so top tens here. Let's go. Number 9, which I could have probably interchanged with Atlas Dogs here. They're kind of like neck and neck. I have Your Direction, and I think it's so well produced. I think it's a fun yacht rock song. I think it's good vibes all around. Maybe it's not going to be the most wave your arms in the air like you don't care song in the live setting, but I think it's a fun tune, and I really like that they were trying to be creative and try something new with this track.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. At number 9, I actually had Animal, and this is no shade at Animal. I really like the experience I'm having with it, and I've listened to it quite a
Oof.
bunch. It's just everything I've got further up the list, I like just slightly more than that. And I think that there's also probably a little bit of bias still in my head with some of these because I'm still trying to adjust to Animal because it is a lot more 70s than what I've grown accustomed to. And I still have the really great version from Milwaukee in my head. So I think as I listen to this album more and more over the next week, I'm going to appreciate Animal even more. And I think I could see a scenario where this enters my top 5 at some point. But Prisoner of the Moment, it's just, there's a lot of good songs in this album.
Yeah, it really is a struggle here. So number 8 for me, I had Everything Must Go. I'm much higher on it than you. Right in the middle of the pack. I think it's just I spent a lot of the aughts and beyond listening to a lot of indie albums, and I just think this sounds terrific. It's totally different from the live setting. I almost think of them as totally different songs. Like I just think of this as like its own thing. Like it's like EMG 2.0, EMG remix or something. But it's something I will go back to and listen to. I think honestly, in a lot of ways, a lot more than even a lot of these other tracks on the album, depending on um, how the live versions come out for some of these new songs and all that. Just because it is so unique. But I also love live Everything Must Go so much, so it's not like replacing that by any means. I just think of them as two different songs.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I want to kind of call that out that a lot of this album, whether you like a song or how much of the album you like, a lot of it's going to depend on how much you like these big swings that they took. Because I really got to say, compared to their other albums, they took so many more big swings at changing things radically. So a lot of it's just going to be like how well those things landed with you, because most of these songs are very road tested. Um, Next up, this is probably our biggest difference. You and me on Everything Must Go, and me and you on Thatch, because I had Thatch at number 8. Obviously, not super high on it, but still big fan of it. I was very nervous about how that one would come out, but overall very pleased. And even though it's definitely less energy than what I get from them in a live arena, I still think it's a really, really good version of it. And yeah, really good effort for a studio track.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny that both of our number 8 tracks are like two of the quote unquote most divisive from the rhetoric I've seen going through Blue Sky and things like that. It Everyone who loves the studio cut of Thatch loves the studio cut of Thatch, like has it way up high in their rankings. I'm surprised you only have it at 8 because you love it. But that also is a testament to how like
Yeah,
any of these songs could be like number 1 on our list next week, probably. So
1,000%.
that's a
Yeah,
great choice.
definitely. What did you have at 7?
So number 7, I feel really bad putting this one here because this one could be number 1 anytime, but I think it's just prisoner of the moment, and having had this one for a long time, I put Give It Time here. I do think it has an argument for the best sounding track on the entire album. It's so well done. The vocals sound incredible, and it's just such a feel good, fun song. How about you? What do you have at 7?
I had How It Ends, which again we just talked about it because it was the last track on the album, but I was just very impressed. I have to admit that I liked the version from the Cap, and since that was the only thing I really had to go off of, I like this maybe even more than a live version, which somebody needs to like probably check my pulse and see that I'm not like having a stroke or a heart attack, because I don't know that I'll ever say those words together again. But this How It Ends is just absolutely fabulous.
It's funny you have it there because I have How It Ends at number 6, and I just think it's
There
a
you go.
great, another kind of like feel good song, even with the darker lyrics. It just hits me right in the heartstrings. Very classic rock vibes to it. And I just think without having much context to how it's quote unquote supposed to sound live, which is the more I say it, the more dumb I feel saying things like that. Um, I just think it played off very well for me, and I really look forward to seeing where it goes live. But I think this one will be in the rotation on playlists and things like that to share with new fans.
Yeah, definitely, especially until we get some more shows going here. At 6, I had Feel It Now. I think we both waxed fairly poetic about it. Just a really good interpretation of that song, a really good reimagining, while still retaining all the things that we like about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. Feel It Now. It's a banger live. It's a banger studio. They absolutely crushed it. Huge fan of this. A sneak peek that'll be up a little higher for me. But now top fives. Let's get after it. And we differed quite a bit on this track. I have Animal sitting at number 5. I was just blown away by this track. How this is not a single. The only thing I can think of is like the intro is a little bit long on it. So maybe if they like did a radio edit on it or something, it would get better play. But I just think it's terrific. Such an earworm, super well produced. I would not expect to be saying that from something that has like layers on layers on layers on it, but it just all works for me.
Yeah, super likable. And I mean, I struggled with Animal because it sat everywhere from 3 to 10 on my list. It's just this is really good album. At
Yeah.
at 5 for me, I had California Magic, which I just that drunken New Orleans feel on Bourbon Street. I'm absolutely here for it. And even though I know it will be rare if ever we see it like that in the live setting, it is such a cool take on that song. And in my opinion, elevates it, as California Magic can be a little bit static live. So to hear something this wildly different was just, it gave me a lot of energy. I'm pretty jacked up on it.
Oh, 100%. And California Magic's one of those songs where like I see it like on a Nugs set list or like a set list on El Goose or something, and I'm like, oh, like cool, like it's like kind of middle of the pack for my emotional scale, I guess, when I see it on a set. And then when you see it live, it's awesome. But seeing it on the studio album after like listening to this amazing studio cut is like, this shit rules. This is one of my highlights. So obviously it's in my top 5 too. Now that we've kind of gone through the rest of them, but we'll get to it in a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So what'd you have it for?
At 4, I had Feel It Now. Just a bop. Riding those kind of like NOLA ish vibes from California Magic, but getting more into the funk with those NOLA horns. I'm here for it. I think this just absolutely rips, and I couldn't have imagined them doing a better job with this in the studio than they did.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's an absolute killer. At 4 for me, This was probably our other biggest disagreement. I have Atlas Dogs at 4. Just absolutely one of my top tracks off the album. I'll just keep saying I love the eclectic choice with the drums here, foregoing that driving rhythm and just kind of opening up and giving it an airy, weightless quality really did wonders for me, while also staying a very true representation to a song that I absolutely adore hearing live already. So I had Atlas Dogs at 4. I had it higher at points too, but I really adore it.
Well, now that I'm looking at my rankings, I really should have ranked these like 1, 2, 3A, 3B, 3C.
Yeah.
And Atlas Dogs would have been like 3G or whatever. I can't do the math in my head that fast of what letter it would be from
Yeah.
where I ranked it.
We got you. That's great.
Speaking of 3, I have California Magic here, man. This just blew me away. And again, it might be a prisoner of the moment thing. I just think when you can reimagine a song like this that adds energy into the fan base for being excited about the song and seeing where it goes live from here, and maybe they find a way to incorporate some of that energy into the live setting, A plus. I could not be more happy with the track that we've had road tested than this California Magic here. How about you, Mike? Where do you have it 3?
So I've got Give It Time here, and I've got to admit I struggled a little bit just because it has been out the longest, and so maybe not feeling as much energy as excitement around it. But just trying to be objective, I just still feel like at the end of the day, it's the most polished and radio friendly song they've ever recorded in the studio, and so I could make a very convincing argument it's the best song on the album because it's just such an accomplishment for them and such strong work top to bottom. But I have it at 3 because 2 new songs took my attention this weekend.
So we are in alignment there, and we are in alignment about Give It Time. Even though I had it at 7, it's like that could easily be number 1 tomorrow. I just think it's so good, and this is more of like a prisoner of the moment, hype levels with things being new, how I feel right now. That's why they're hasty rankings. So
Yep.
Let's end the suspense. Let's give our number 1 and number 2 together because we're going to know what number 1 is. For number 1, I had Dustin Hoffman. Absolutely slaps. Number 2, I had Iguana Song. The horns of Dustin Hoffman just hit the perfect chord to my heartstrings. And you can't not be like tapping your foot or like up and dancing immediately listening to this thing. I think the dichotomy of sound between that verse and that chorus sound, and then the way the jam gets kind of blissy and imagining all the ways it could go is just so exciting. And then Iguana Song, man, this is an argument to potentially be the best Great Blue pull the band has in their catalog if it takes off the way live we imagine the way it could. We'll see where it goes, but it's just such an earworm. I love the different soundscapes it takes. It's totally like Time to Flee's cousin, like I said, but hey, if they play those back to back, that'd be like a suite that people are excited for years.
Yeah, definitely, and very similar. I had just the exact opposite. Iguana Song 1, Dustin Hoffman 2. No wrong answers here. Both obviously very hyped on the new music that Goose gave us. So super excited that the 2 brand new songs that we got, we're both humongous fans of, obviously. Can't stop listening to them. And I mean, the only reason I had Iguana Song number 1 is just at the end of the day, I think of everything on this album, it has the greatest potential to be an absolute just monster jam vehicle. And it has so many different elements going on that it's definitely going to play a role, in my opinion, where it's going to take Goose to weird and interesting places, which when I listen to Goose, that's kind of my favorite part. So I'm just very excited to see where all this music opens them up this summer.
Oh, it's so exciting to think about, like being the geeks we are about Goose and music in general. It's like I know our imaginations have been running wild all week, and Iguana Song I think is the epitome of that in a lot of ways. Both of these tracks, but the way they already kind of jam it out in the studio and then imagining it going 20 minutes longer, like the possibilities are endless. Great psychedelic banger.
Yeah, definitely. And wanted to also call out that typically when we've done these studio album reviews, we've also given you like some of our best choices for live tracks. We'll probably tackle that at a later date, as 2 of the songs that we're predicting are going to be pretty awesome jam vehicles don't have any live plays yet. So kind of want to be fair to that. And also we wanted to give you our hasty rankings and go through the biggest week of news in Goose history, possibly. So this is a long one, but thank you all so much for sticking with us. Before we sign off, Any final like overall high level thoughts about the album, Alex?
I gotta say, this is an outstanding effort. I don't care what jabronis from Rolling Stone say, giving it 3 stars or whatever. I think this is their best album yet. I think it's going to play very well for indie fans who aren't necessarily jam band fans and bringing them along. I think there's plenty of potential for radio play from some of these songs. And I couldn't be like prouder of how this came off. And it changed my opinion as someone who's like, I don't really need to listen to studio albums so much. I actually really like this one. I could see it in the rotation. So I have to change my entire personality from published New York Times hating studio album guy to someone who likes at least one a lot. So props to Everything Must Go. Props to D. James Goodwin. Props to Goose. Props to everyone involved. This is a great effort. And it makes me proud as a fan to see them just crush it.
Yeah, super proud of them as a fan. They took so many chances this time around, as they usually do. But to me, it's almost mind numbing how many chances and new directions they took here. Very exciting to see where it keeps going. And I think maybe even more exciting with hearing the news that they're already kind of working on the next batch of songs for the next album. I think, given how outstanding this is, the fact that they're already kind of putting thought and time into that next project is just even more exciting to me because, where the hell do we go from here? Only up. So, really, really great week to be a Goose fan and just super excited for how Everything Must Go is going to dominate 2025.
Oh my gosh. To your point, like we have this outstanding album in front of us, and I've been trying to live in the present, and I've been doing a good job. But now that you say that, it's like, oh my gosh, think of all these other road tested songs that could be studio bangers on the next album. Like, let's not go there. It's going to be 2025's best year of Goose yet, and it's just going to keep going up. Outstanding effort, guys. Everything Must Go rules.
A++, 5 stars on Yelp. And thank you all so much for tuning in. This was a blast. We love sharing our fandom with you and getting to celebrate the album release week with everyone. As always, follow us on socials at SlowReadyPod. You can send us an email, slowreadypod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, any thoughts or feedback. And we can't wait to be back here shortly to cover Viva El Gonzo for you. We're as excited as the band and everyone that's going to be in Mexico. So can't wait to watch that and give you our thoughts. But thank you all so much and hope you have a wonderful week.
Thanks, everybody. Don't be shy to yell at us about our rankings. Like, we love to hear from you, and we look forward to it. Take care, y'all.